Hello and welcome everybody to Game 3 of MMA vs. Feast from the IEM Kiev quarterfinals, spawning here in the 9 o'clock position as the Blue Terran. Playing from Team Slayers we have MMA. Spawning in the 2 o'clock position as the Red Protoss. Playing from Team Millennium we have Feast. It is completely locked up, dead even right now, 1-1 for both of these players. Right now, going to have to see how they are going to play out this map on Metalopolis here in Game 3. Now, they have spawned cross positions, which generally means that they are going to be playing for a more macro-centric game. On most versions of this map, this one included, then there are only a couple of possible spawning locations. If you are MMA here in this position, it is completely impossible for Feast to have spawned here. Basically, the close-by ground positions, they basically want to try to reduce the amount of early game attacks that you could be going for on this map. The other possible position, if you are MMA, your opponent can also spawn here in the close by air position. So those are the two places that you want to scout very early on. Close by air, of course, that opens up a lot of possibilities to you in the late game, but generally tends to lead to a less flexible game. It requires, generally, if you spawn close by air, most players will try to take advantage of the fact that they are close by air, meaning that drops are stronger, meaning that any kind of air units, Banshee harass, very strong. But as we can see, we've gone cross-map here. So here with cross-map positions, they're going to have a lot more flexibility in what to do. They're going to have a lot more time to see drops coming. They're going to have a lot more time to build up armies. They're going to be able to expand freely here. And this is a map where taking a third generally determines the pacing of the game, just because a lot of Terrans will sometimes try to go immediately for this gold expansion, or even Protoss can sometimes go for that gold as well. Some players just actually, I don't even know why I'm limiting myself to Protoss and Terran. Any player could go for this gold expansion early on, and if your opponent doesn't scout it, or if your opponent doesn't have map control, it can give you quite a huge lead. The safer expansion to take is always this one here, or this one here at the far ends of the map. And those are the ones that are much easier to defend. They require a much bigger commitment from your opponent, because as you can see, if MMA, for example, wanted to attack this 4 o'clock position from here, or 5 o'clock position, I guess I should say, from here he would have to come all the way down here and come up this ramp here, leaving his army, leaving his own bases pretty well exposed along this top attack path. Whereas if he decided that instead he wanted to cut through the middle and attack here, there's a possibility that Feast could get a surround from the back as well as the front. So it's really hard to hit this third position, much harder than hitting this gold expansion in the middle. So attack paths here on Metalopolis really very critical, very crucial in determining in what direction you should attack. Whenever you play on Metalopolis, you should always be thinking about through which of these two lanes am I going to be sending my ground forces, because both will have very different effects on the outcome of the following fights. Now we can see that MMA has opened with a pretty good 2 racks here. So far only operating on 1 gas, does have the orbital command up and running. 2 racks, 1 with reactor, 1 with tech lab, now researching that concussive shell, producing a lot of marines as well as marauders. And how is Feast opening this match up? He is opening it up with a 1 gate and cybernetics core with 1 gas geyser into expand, followed by a couple more gateways. So it looks like it is going to be 3 gates here in total from Feast, and so his expansion is going to be a little bit earlier from MMA's once again. And so just like in game 1, if Feast is able to defend this expansion, and if he's able to defend it well without losing too many workers, this will actually get him very far ahead. But MMA is looking to get very aggressive right now. Notice he is pulling SCVs along with him. He's continuing to rally in more Marines and more Marauders as well. 1 pylon is being placed in a forward position right now by Feast, and Feast is just now going to poke up into his base and see that forces are already coming his way, not to mention knocking at his front door right now. And MMA going to start to poke up this ramp. Bunker is going to now be thrown down here by MMA, and this is going to be a scary little force to deal with here from Feast. Force field going down, blocking cutting out some of these units from fighting the army. And Feast, that was actually a brilliant force field there from Feast, as that allowed him to pick off quite a few units quite easily there. And now MMA going to be pulling in. Oh, nice little pick off there by Feast, using his probes to pick off the SCV there, meaning that there are no SCVs left here for MMA for this bunker. So he's just going to be forced to cancel it and do what damage he can with the Marine Marauders that he has. I assume we're going to see a cancel coming down on this bunker here very soon here from MMA. Maybe he doesn't want to give away that he's completely giving up on this attack yet, and so he's going to continue to do damage, and he's picking off a few stalkers here as more have now joined the fight. We do have one stalker here, and oh man, that is going to be close, but I think Feast might actually be able to hold off this attack. We do see more reinforcements that are arriving here for MMA, but the stalker count here for Feast is now definitely too high to be able to take out this many forces. Focusing down that Marauder. Now going to be cleaning up the rest of those Marines and just pulling right on back and forcing that retreat from MMA. Now looks like Feast's going to start to get a little bit aggressive here, moving across the map with these stalkers in the base of Feast. He's still just operating on those 3 gateways, and if we check out the harvester count right now, we can see that Feast is actually up 30 harvesters to 27 thanks to those wonderful chrono boosts, and he didn't really lose that many workers here. Only 4 workers were lost in that exchange to the 3 that were lost from MMA, who actually lost quite a bit of mining time from having to walk those 3 SCVs all the way across the map there. So now it looks like Feast is going to continue to warp in more units and get aggressive here. MMA going to be throwing up a second bunker here at the front. He does have a good number of Marines here, but that bunker is going down so fast, and MMA is going to have to pull more workers and doesn't quite get the repair off. And Feast is now at the front of MMA's base, and MMA only really has Marines to defend against this one Marauder just now popped out here. But Stalkers do very, very well against lone Marines there. If they don't have Marauders to back them up, Marauders do very, very well against Stalkers. But it looks like MMA might actually be forced to cancel this command center, or just he has no SCV actually completing it, even though it's at 99 out of 100. He's going to have to send a bunch of workers down if he's going to want to save that command center. Definitely does not want to be losing that command center at this point in the game. In the meantime, back home, we do see that Feast just continuing to warp in units here and saturating further at his main, but will MMA be able to actually clean this up? It looks like he might just barely be able to do it. I don't know why he left these few workers here fighting those stalkers by themselves, but he's losing quite a few forces. The command center does get finished up, and he is now just going to be forced to pull that back into his main. In the meantime, Feast is just getting farther and farther ahead right now. What is he going to decide to go for right now as he continues to warp in more units? And once again, he's containing MMA very well here at the front. Going to try to poke up this ramp, but there are just way too many Marines and Marauders here. Now going to be forced to just pull back, and look at that concussive shell. Absolutely fantastic at helping pick off those retreating units. Now we do see 3 more gates now being thrown up here by Feast. Oh, 4 more gates being thrown up, bringing this up to a total of 7 gateways. So it looks like it is just going to be a big 7-gate push here from Feast, as he feels like he has now been mining on this expansion long enough to really have him be way ahead in the economy game. So now MMA has got to be feeling just a little bit wonky about this game, as he's not really going to know what to do, or he's going to have to think of something quick and something drastic if he wants to come back in this game. Notice he's already starting to run a little low here on his minerals. If we check out the harvester count, he is way down in harvesters, 47 to 26. Feast with the big advantage in this game. MMA is going to go and land at the gold. That's definitely something that's a little drastic that he's going to try doing, but does he have enough to really be able to defend it? I think this is just a big drastic move here from MMA. I think if this ends up paying off, if this orbital command, oh no, but Feast drops down the pylon there, doesn't actually see the orbital command going down yet, but now he does see Marine Marauder forces now coming through the middle of the map, but doesn't know that this orbital command here. So maybe if MMA is able to have this gold mining, he might be able to come back in this game. In the meantime, the 7 gateways are now up and running for Feast, and he's continuing to just throw up lots and lots more units. Good composition here, lots of stalkers in the front, lots of sentries as well for their force field. Guardian shield going down now from Feast as he tries to cut off some of the units of MMA, but MMA just pulls back right out of those force fields, and now lots and lots of workers now being transferred to this gold expansion, as MMA really needs to have this up and mining for as long as he can. There is a scout factory that is going to be checking for thirds down here, but MMA I think really needs to get some bunkers up here. He really needs to secure this gold expansion, and there we go. Feast manages to get onto that Zelnaga watchtower, sees that MMA is mining on the gold, and he's going to have to try to deny that as soon as possible, as he is now moving out with lots more forces, more stalkers now being warped in back home. In the base of MMA, we just see more and more barracks being thrown down. I like this from MMA. He wants to try to be a little bit more cost efficient, and bioforces are going to be cost efficient at this point in time because it's not going to require that he gets up more and more tech. He's not going to have to spend additional money, but it looks like Feast deciding to commit to this attack. Guardian Shield goes down as he moves in with lots of Zealots and Stalkers. Force Field's trying to go down on some of the forces, which are preventing some of these forces from shooting quite a bit. Now MMA being forced to pull through these tiny little narrow chokes, and now more Force Fields going down here as Feast is slowly just picking off Marines left and right with his Force Fields as he continues to warp more units in, currently sitting at 107 food to the 76 food of MMA. Do we see any more tech going? No, we just see lots of Chrono Boosts going down on these warp gates as Feast continues to just drill more units. He wants to take this expansion down. Notice lots of workers were pulled there for MMA. 19 workers killed so far for Feast. 55 Harvesters to 23 right now in the drone count, as we can see that Feast is just continuing to try to poke up here and try to deny this expansion for as long as he can, and that's exactly what he needs to do because he's got his natural up and running. And as we can see, it looks like he is trying to warp in more units here at this lower location here as he's trying to force MMA to have to pull back here, and here comes a big engagement as Feast moves in, but the bioforces are actually crammed pretty well into those into that mineral line, and I think that those forces might have actually helped MMA in that fight a little bit just because those Zealots weren't quite able to connect with those Marine Marauders. And MMA is doing a good job of defending this location as well. And now we do see the bunker going down here for MMA. I think this is a brilliant move from MMA because he really needs to defend this expansion, but he's still way down in food, way down in Harvesters. 80 food to 117. 56 Harvesters to 26. And as we can see, he's just continuing to churn out more Marine Marauder as more units getting picked off there by those beautiful Force Fields from Feast, as he is just really drilling this one base as best he can as he continues to just try to drill this base. But I think soon he's going to start to need higher tech units. As we can see, the medevacs are out, but they are low on energy now. They are getting rather low on energy, and I think Feast is actually might actually have a pretty tricky time breaking this this front line with the SCVs there to repair that bunker. In fact, it's a very well placed bunker with that refinery there. Then those Zealots aren't going to be able to get a good surround on it. But as we can see, this is a mostly Stalker-centric force right now, and these Marauders deal quite a bit of damage to Stalkers as MMA continues to push forward harder and harder against this force. MMA is starting to feel a little bit stronger. If we check out upgrades right now, all these units are currently 0-0 in upgrades, no upgrades for either player, and Feast just continuing to drill as many units as he can into this gold base, and he just can't manage to break it. And MMA is getting quite a good number of workers here. If we check out the units lost tab, we can see that Feast has actually lost a lot more than MMA, and he's actually not being that cost effective at all. With his units. Do we see any other tech? We do see a Twilight Council now coming down here for Feast as he's trying to find something to do, and he's just now starting to throw down his third. I think this is a smart choice from Feast. I almost feel like that expansion would have been better served earlier just because he was really having trouble breaking this front. But, of course, now he's going to be breaking through this front on the side with no bunker. Going to be focusing down the Orbital Command. That Orbital Command taking quite a bit of damage. Will he be able to focus it down? It is now on fire. MMA trying to mass repair it, but no. Feast is able to take out the Orbital Command, bringing MMA back down to, well, 1.5 bases. He does have his gold expansion just barely mining, but Feast is losing a lot of units in this little exchange here as the forces of MMA stim forward once again, and they are all so low, but they are taking the army of Feast down so quickly, and GG from Feast, as Feast decides that that is just too big of a force for him to be able to deal with, and that the pushback is just going to be a little bit too strong, and Feast leaves out of game 2. Wow, I can't decide if that was a good decision by Feast. Feast did just lose his entire army. MMA still had a good number of army, but the food counts were relatively even, and the Harvester count here for Feast was way higher, 57 Harvesters to 26. He really would just need to survive and hold on longer. But no, it looks like Feast decided that he was not going to be able to win that game, and GG'd here out of Game 3, meaning that MMA is now up 2-1 in the series as we go into Game 4. So stick with me, guys. Game 4 of MMA versus Feast coming up in just a moment.